I just spent at least an hour absolutely rotting my brain with the worst and hottest gaming takes on Twitter, or the social media website formerly known as Twitter. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to react to some of these. Some of them are outright horrible, some of them I actually agree with, but we're just going to look at them, laugh at them, talk about them, that kind of thing. So if you're into that, welcome to the channel. My name's Janky, and I talk about games. I upload like 3 times a week, so if that's something that you're into, follow along for the journey. We're just getting started, and yeah. Alright, Twitter is obviously the worst place on earth. You should spend as little time as you possibly can on this social media platform. But for someone that makes videos, it's kind of necessary for me to at least look at it every once in a while. Because, you get the news and you get the horrible gaming opinions, which is what we're looking at today. So let's start off and get right into these horrible gaming opinions. Achievement hunting is a weird way to enjoy games to me. I can play a game for hundreds of hours and not have all the achievements unlocked, and I'm okay with that. I never understood achievement hunting and going for like platinum trophies and stuff. Like for me, when I roll the credits on a game, that's that game done. I rarely go back to a game after I finish it to get all the achievements or unlock things. Like the point of playing a game is to play the game to the end, right? So I do as much as I can until I finish the game. But then after that, what's the point of playing? Because you already beat it, right? I never understood the platinum thing. I rarely replay games. The only game that I've replayed in recent memory, well, like a bunch of Pokemon games, but that's just because I was a kid and didn't have money for like all the new games, so I would just replay Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver over and over again. But games that I actually replay for the replay value, like Baldur's Gate 3, but that's just because every run is like different and there's so many character builds that I want to try and stuff. Roguelikes are another one that I'll replay, partially because that's kind of the point of them. The runs are always different, those kind of things. But replaying a game for trophies has never been something that I've understood. And I like watching people do it. Like there's this one guy on YouTube, I don't remember his name right now, but he pretty much his whole channel is just about going for platinums and stuff. And I enjoy watching it. And I do understand the appeal, but for me, never really been into achievement hunting. Not really my style of gaming. All right, next up on our Twitter hot takes, we have despite recent controversy, Nintendo is still the best of the 3 console makers. The only one who can sell a console on exclusives and release complete games at launch. Doesn't chase trends just focuses on what they're good at and not firing many people for executives' failures. There's a lot to unpack in this take, but I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I don't think Nintendo is the best of the 3 console makers. I think the Switch is one of the best consoles of all time. I think that console is amazing. But if we're talking like best console makers, we obviously have Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. I don't think it's the best of it. I think that it's definitely probably second to Sony. I mean, Xbox isn't really at that level anymore. I think they only really had the 360. That might be my hot take. If the Xbox didn't have the 360, it would be nowhere near the level of Sony and Nintendo. But what I do agree with is that they're the only console that can sell on exclusives. If you took away Nintendo's exclusives, they would be nothing. If you took away Sony's exclusives or Microsoft's exclusives, they would still be at the top of the game. And I think that says a lot about the way that Nintendo really sells exclusives, and that's kind of their whole business model. But that's something that we know. That's not a hot take, right? What I do think Nintendo does well, and I think that they do better than anyone else, is focus on the fun factor in games. Like, Sony's known for making their games look amazing. They run brilliantly, graphics, and, they're fluid and they're awesome. Nintendo is really just focused on what makes games fun, and if the game is fun, then it's good enough to go out, right? Like, they don't care about the story as much as People might want more story in games. Nintendo doesn't care. The story's never there. It's just, fun, pure fun, unfiltered comfort gaming kind of thing, All right, the next take we have is there is simply no reason for computer game graphics to progress beyond the level of late 2000, early 2010s. Everything else is a vanity and a waste of budget and processing power. And it limits the amount of people who can run the game. That is a hot take, and that is one I definitely do not agree with. And don't get me wrong, like early console generations like PS2, even Xbox 360, and then before that like GameCube and those things, I love that art style. I like the, like animated, colorful, cartoony art style. I think it looks great, and I think it adds a lot of longevity to the games. And I honestly like it better than like early Xbox One and like late Xbox 360 level of graphics, because I think those games went for realism when the technology wasn't quite there yet. So if this take was said in like, 2015, I might actually agree with it. But nowadays, I like a game that looks good. Like realistic, beautiful, like ray tracing, lighting, all of those things. That makes a game a lot better for me. And if your computer can't handle it, I'm sorry, but it's probably just not the game for you. There's plenty of games that you can play if you have a lower tier computer or just a console, right? Like consoles can run games really well at a lower price point, so just get a console, right? I don't know. It being a waste of budget is also kind of confusing. I mean, like, it's not, right? Like, this is a selling point in games. If the game is pumping a lot of money into the graphics and the look of the game, it's probably going to sell better. I mean, it's not the only thing that matters, obviously, but I don't know. I don't think it's a waste of money. I don't agree with this take. While I do think that early 2000s graphics looked awesome, and there's nostalgia and it adds a lot of longevity, I think that today's graphics are definitely not a waste of money, and I think that it was a welcome evolution. The next take is if no one would play your game if it had poor graphics and no sound, then what you have is a playable music video instead of a game. Yeah, I don't know about this one. That's a crazy take. I mean, graphics and sound are so important, especially sound. Like, why would you play a game with no sound? If a game doesn't have good sound, like if you're playing, I don't know, an action game and the music is like horrible and your hits don't register with like great sound and, you know, all those things that make it feel impactful, then it's not nearly as fun. And graphics, like, we're not talking about like games that are like retro games, but like if we're talking about like visual appeal, like retro games can still look good even if the graphics aren't good, right? I think that a game needs to have all three to be good and more. Like graphics, sound, gameplay all need to be working in unison to create a good game. I don't think it's fair to say if you take two of these things out and the game's still good, then the game's good, right? Like I think that all three things need to work together. All right, this next one is going to ruffle some feathers, but we got my unpopular gaming opinion. The price of games should be way more than it is. I bought a game in 1990 for $60, so by today's inflation, and they added a little graph, if in 1990 purchased an item for $60, then in 2018 the same item would cost $115. This is going to get a lot of people upset, but I kind of agree with it. There's a lot of controversy around game prices, obviously, right? This is something that we know. But at the same time, I kind of see where he's coming from. I mean, look, I would love if games cost like 20 bucks, right? Everyone would. That would be great. But if you're realistically looking at it, like you go to the movies, right? A new movie drops, you go to the theater, and what does it cost? Like 15 bucks for a ticket where I live? And that's like 2-3 hours of experience, right? But then you buy a new game, and like brand new, right? Like day one release, and it's like $100. That's like over 100 hours for some games of experience, right? That's something that you could play for months and months and even years. So why are movies not overpriced but games are? Games are harder to make, they take longer to make, they cost more to make, but for some reason they should cost the same amount as new movies that you see in the theater. And then there's obviously the argument that it's like, well, if you want, you could just watch the movie on streaming services. Well, you could do the same thing with games, right? Game Pass exists. There's Steam sales for like The Witcher 3 right now is $5. That's the same thing. If an old movie is on a streaming service or whatever, you can rent it or whatever, you could do the same thing with games. So I honestly don't think that games are overpriced. I think that if they go over $100, then they might start creeping towards overpriced. But $100 for a game that you can play for 80 to 100 hours, that's like $1 an hour, right? I would easily pay $1 an hour to play Baldur's Gate 3 or Red Dead 2 or something, like one of those top tier AAA games. And the part that I can understand with games being overpriced is when an indie game drops for like $40. That just shouldn't be the case. Indie games should be capped at like $20 max. And I'm talking about like actual indie games, not like Hades 2 or Silk Song that are like indie games, but it's now become like kind of a big deal. But like actual indie games, first title from the developer kind of thing, no more than $20. If I see a game on Steam that's $40 and it's an indie title, instantly not buying it, right? My hot gaming take is that digital is better. So they're talking about games, right? Like physical versus digital, obviously. And this one could go one of two ways, right? So I recently bought a Switch. It was my first Nintendo console since the 3DS, so big upgrade. I know the Switch 2 is out and I just bought a last gen console, but I needed a Nintendo console that wasn't a 3DS. I still use my 3DS to this day. But my favorite thing about this Switch, one of my favorite things, it's a great console, but one of my favorite things is that I can play physical games again. I can go into, GameStop or Walmart or whatever and actually buy a physical, box with a cartridge inside and put it on my shelf and it's actually there and it doesn't need to download, and that's awesome, right? I love that about the Switch. However, digital games are way more convenient, right? Like you're sitting down, go on Steam, there's sales all there for you to browse, you click it, you download it, come back a couple hours later and you play it. You don't need to wait for it to come in from Amazon or go out and buy the game. Well, it is fun to go buy a game and come home and you have the actual thing. Digital gaming is more convenient. So better? I'm not sure. I think they both have their place, but definitely more convenient. So this take, I don't know. I'm on the fence. The next take we have is exclusives are terrible for gaming. Strongly disagree with this one. Like, I could not disagree more with this take. Exclusives are so important for games. If you look back at the 2010s, those were the peak years of gaming for a lot of people. Xbox 360, PS3, Nintendo Wii. Like, those were the formative years for my generation in terms of gaming. And the reason for that, for me, is exclusives, right? You had Halo, you had Gears of War, God of War, all these great games that were so great because they were exclusive, because only one side could play them, and then you had people going back and forth with each other and say what you want about console wars. They were annoying, they were just a bunch of sweaty nerds arguing on behalf of their favorite billionaire, but they did create this, competition that strived each other to make better games, right? Like, Halo would not have been nearly as good if PlayStation wasn't coming around the corner with the next, like, Uncharted game or whatever, you know what I mean? These companies were so competitive with each other because of exclusives, and exclusives made games way better. Now that we don't have exclusives as much, I think that gaming is worse off for it. I don't know. I don't agree with this take at all. Let's move on. Alright, the next hot take is GTA, Nintendo, and From Software are the most overrated things in all of gaming. Nah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, okay. I partially agree with it. Let's not say at all. GTA, not overrated as a single player game, extremely overrated as a multiplayer game. And that might just be because I don't really like multiplayer games. But GTA as a series, single player, it's great. It's not exactly my type of game, but if you look at all the things you can do in the open worlds and, you know, it's a wonderfully made game. And GTA 5 was revolutionary in a lot of ways. I mean, you had the triple protagonist where you could switch from one to another and it went right into what they were doing at that time. That was brilliant. You know, the mission design was great. I like when you can like recruit different people and, you know, it makes the mission or it makes the loot you get from it less but higher chance of success. All these things that work together made GTA 5 and before that as well. There was a lot of things before that, but GTA is not overrated as a single player game. Maybe a bit overrated as a multiplayer game. Nintendo, absolutely not overrated in my opinion. Um, I I know that a lot of people will say, "Oh, Nintendo only sells on nostalgia, and the only reason Nintendo's around is because of their exclusives." And yes, that's true, but the nostalgia is great, right? Like, they have such good fan service in their games that it makes the games good. And it's not really pure nostalgia if you're selling fan service. Like, I want a game that brings me back to a time of my childhood, right? Like, that's not a bad thing, right? And only selling exclusives and only selling on exclusives isn't bad. Like, you can't play Mario anywhere else. So you're gonna buy a Nintendo console, right? You can't play Pokemon anywhere else, so you're gonna buy a Nintendo console. These aren't bad things, and it definitely doesn't make Nintendo overrated, in my opinion. And From Software being overrated, that is one I actually agree with. Okay, this is another one of my hot takes for the video. If Dark Souls wasn't difficult, people wouldn't like it. That's my opinion. I don't think the games are good. I think Elden Ring is good. I haven't tried Sekiro, but I assume it's good. It looks really good. But Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Demon Souls, if those games weren't difficult, no one would care about them at all. I think they are extremely overrated. I think they look bad. I think they play bad. They're slow. And the only reason people play them is because they're challenging. That's it. I said it. That's my hot take. Argue with me in the comments, but those games are overrated. Alright, second to last take for the video is most open world games have no replayability beyond the wonder of discovering experience for the first time. Consecutive playthroughs are watered down attempts to capture the same magic, building a nostalgia for the wonder once felt. Yeah, I kind of talked about this before, but I fully agree with that. There is no point in playing open world games twice for me, besides a few little examples. I'm going to keep this one short because I did already talk about it, but I find no joy in replaying games again. Yeah, I find just as much joy in rewatching movies, which is something that I rarely ever do. And games just take longer, so it's less of a incentive to replay a game. Last take for today is console gaming is more exciting and a better overall experience than PC gaming today. Seeing all the excitement for the Steam machine despite its average looking performance proves to me that people care more about the experience than raw FPS and performance. I don't know. I'm someone that recently switched from Xbox to PC, and enjoyability, that can come in a couple different ways, right? Like, it is fun to sit on your couch with a nice blanket on, and you got your cup of tea, and you're playing a game, and it's fun, and it's cozy, and it's comfortable. But if you're someone who gets enjoyment from maxing out your graphics settings and playing, like, the newest games at the highest possible settings, then PC is more enjoyable. I don't think you can say for certain that one is better than the other because the enjoyment factor is better for everyone, because people find joy in different things. For me, I have my PC at my desk, I sit in my chair on my monitor, and I play high-end games on good graphics settings, and I enjoy it. And then I have my Switch connected to my TV, or just playing as a handheld on my couch in my bed, and that's just as enjoyable. So, I don't know. I don't agree that one is way better than the other. I think that they're both enjoyable. I think that the Steam Machine getting excitement, even though it has pretty standard specs, is just that people are excited for a new Valve hardware. I think people are excited to be able to play their PC games in more places than just at their office chair. And that's perfectly valid. Like, if you can connect your Steam library to your TV in your bedroom and play it from bed, I think it's more than reasonable to be excited for that. I don't think it makes it more enjoyable, it just makes it more accessible and enjoyable in a different way. All right, that was Twitter's hottest gaming takes. And hopefully now you can avoid Twitter all day, because that gave you enough of a fix of everything that is wrong with Twitter. So you're welcome for that. And thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment. I think we're at 16 subscribers. We're grinding. We're getting up there. Thanks for all the support. I've been reading comments, seeing all the likes and views roll in, as slow as they might be right now. I'm enjoying it, and it's a great journey. So if you like this, check out my other videos and join along for the journey. I've been Janky. Stay tuned for the latest gaming news, controversies, and discussions, and I will catch you in the next one.